break during the adjournment of this meeting. And it is a reconvened meeting of Sedgemoor District Council's executive. And today is the 30th of April and it's a Friday 2021. And the original meeting was adjourned on the 14th of April 2021 in order to obtain certain information before we move forward with any decision. I think I'll now hand over to Mr. Mel Hewish.
Thank you very much, Leader, and good morning, members and officers. Just to say that the meeting is being recorded and a copy of the recording will be made available on our website in the next 2 working days. If there are any technical problems, then obviously we will adjourn the meeting, but hopefully everything will be in order today. And if you do need to make a comment during the meeting, please use the chat facility to attract the attention of the leader. And the format of today's meeting will be as per the agenda, which is for the reconvened meeting. So over to you, Leader, to carry out the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to go round each executive member, asking them to confirm that they can see and hear and are actually with it. And I am here and can see and hear. Councillor Slocum.
Good morning, Leader. Good morning, everyone. Councillor Slocum, Deputy Leader. I can see and hear everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Caswell.
Good morning, everybody. Mike Caswell. I can clearly hear and see everything.
Thank you. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Councillor Lance Duddridge. I can see and hear everybody clearly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gilling.
Good morning, Leader. Yes, Councillor Gilling here. I can hear and see everything, and I am with it.
Good. Very pleased to hear that. Councillor Mark Healy.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and good morning, everybody. Mark Healy. I can clearly see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Keane. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Janet Keane. I can confirm I can clearly see and hear the proceedings.
Right, thank you. And I'll just go round SLT officers, starting with the Chief Executive.
Good morning, everyone. Bob Brown, Chief Executive. I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Mr. Bamsey.
Good morning, Doug Bamsey, Deputy Chief Executive. I confirm I can hear and see everything.
Thank you. Mrs. Turner.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Alison Turner, Strategic Director and Section 151 Officer. I can confirm I can see and hear everything.
Thank you. Melanie Wellman.
Good morning, members. Melanie Wellman, Assistant Director for Legal and Governance and Monitoring Officer, and I can confirm that I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we've got Layla, Steve here, and of course, by no means least, we have Dawn Lehman, Andrew Mel Hewish, and Adrian Gardner. Is there anyone else, Andrew?
Councillor Smedley is at the meeting as well today.
Okay, good. Thank you. Right, members, then continuing with the agenda. Any apologies? Nope.
No apologies today. Full house today.
Thank you. Agenda item 2 then, declarations of interest.
If I may, Leader, through you, a personal declaration of interest, being a member of Somerset County Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Likewise, Leader, Councillor Mike Caswell, also a member of Somerset County Council.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you. Right, without further ado then, if there are no more declarations of interest, we'll move to agenda item 3, which is the local referendum on the future of local government and its service delivery in Somerset. I will just kick off by saying once again that we adjourned the meeting because we needed to seek further legal advice. That legal advice has come in now. You'll have had that as part of the pack for this meeting. And earlier today, there were 2 other items of correspondence. One, a letter from the Secretary of State to Ian Littlegranger, and also the answer to a question that was put to him last week, which should all form part of the reading for the decision-making process. This is a recommendation here today through to council, which will be later on this morning, and I would think probably the place to have the big debate is at the full council meeting, when most members will be able to air their views should they wish to do so. But without further ado, I'll hand over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Leader. I'll keep this brief, but I think it's probably worthwhile just giving you a potted history of how we got to where we are, and then just pinpoint the key issues for you in terms of reaching your consideration in terms of legal advice and other issues. So, as you're aware, on the previous occasion, we made a recommendation, a report recommending that we hold a poll, a local poll under Section 116 of the Local Government Act 2003, in conjunction with all the other districts in the county, and that will form a referendum then for the county as a whole. That decision was postponed and suspended because of a letter we received from the Secretary of State raising a number of issues around value for money and the merits of holding a poll in the terms that we were holding it. It raised legal issues that we needed to address. We had solicitors acting for us who initially gave us some advice around the Secretary of State's letter that raised some concerns, and recommended that we take specific legal advice from a QC, which we have done, and we've gone to the preeminent QC on local government law in the country, James Gowdy QC, and his advice is attached to the report and sets out the circumstances. As you're aware, the consultation process has now closed, and from the outset, we raised concerns about the consultation process and its breadth in terms of getting to all people affected by local government reorganisation in the area, not least of all because the Secretary of State has set 3 criteria for measuring which of the proposals should be successful. So that's about efficiencies and improvement in services, command of good deal of local support, and then geography. The issue for us here is the second criteria, commanding a good deal of local support, which clearly is not just a qualitative measure, which the Secretary of State's consultation has got to some extent, but is also a quantitative measure. So how many people support it, and particularly for us, how many people who are voters and the people of Somerset and Sedgemoor who use our services. So hence the reason why we wanted to go for a referendum. The Secretary of State raised issues about value for money and whether a referendum or a poll would be relevant. The QC's advice, I think, is abundantly clear in this, that actually, irrespective of the fact that the consultation has closed, if we hold a poll in the terms that we're intending to do and is recommended to you, then the Secretary of State will have to take that into consideration, because under the Wednesbury rules, it is a relevant consideration and he will need to take that into account in his decision making. So on that basis, that assists greatly in deciding whether there's value for money in expending some money to undertake this poll. And I think for the reasons that are set out in the report, then you can see why it would be relevant to hold that poll. The Secretary of State's decision making is not anticipated to conclude until the end of this session of Parliament, or the next session of Parliament, which will be in July. And we have plenty of time within the timetable that we're anticipating to hold the poll to get that result to the Secretary of State so he can take it into account. So I think in terms of all those issues, that squares off the concerns that the Secretary of State has. And it's interesting that the subsequent letter that the MP, Ian Littlegranger, received from the Secretary of State, I think, is far more conciliatory in regard those areas and makes it clear that that is a decision for us to take. And I think in terms of the advice and the circumstances set out, that's cleared that away. I think I just need to address the letter that we received from Mr. Finch, which I think was circulated around to you for the executive to consider, which raises 2 particular issues. Once again, it's the value for money issue and whether it's a reasonable thing to do outside of the consultation period. And I think in my introduction here, I've explained why that issue has been resolved, and I think Mr. Finch's issues have been dealt with. The second one was around misleading and potential bias in the poll. We've taken further legal advice to make sure that we don't have any bias in terms of the information and the poll details that go out. I know that Mr. Finch raises the issue around us being perhaps disingenuous in regard to saying that there's only going to be 2 councils for the area and that there's going to be other organisations. I think to some extent that's a red herring. There are lots of other organisations in terms of how services are managed. So if we just take Heritage Services and the archives, that's currently run by a partnership. And the same with Trading Standards, which is another county council. So there's a partnership between lots of other councils, and there's trusts and other senior officers across the piece. So I think similar arguments apply. The key issue is will there be more than one council? And actually, it's more simpler than 2 councils for Stronger Somerset. For the people of Sedgemoor, our proposal means that there will be only 1 council and 1 front door for all services, and that'll be the Western Western Somerset Council. So I think that clearly answers that particular issue. So I think in a quick run through of the issues, I think that's covered it off. But I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. The Section 151 officer and the monitoring officer are here too as well. So if you need any specific legal advice, I'm sure Melanie can provide that. And similarly, in terms of value for money, then Alison be happy to take any questions on that. So thank you very much, Leader. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. And we're proposing just a slight tweak to the recommendation for full council, are we not?
Indeed, Leader, if we can, we just have a slight amendment so that we can have either on the starting on the 18th or thereabouts and finishing on the 4th of May or thereabouts. We just want to make sure that we don't fix dates absolutely, because if there is a challenge from the county council or someone else that delays it by a day or 2, we don't have to come all the way back to members in order to support that. Obviously, if we're successful and we avoid any challenge, then we'd like to be able to go ahead based on the decision that you made today, even if that's a day or 2 outside of the date that we've set at the moment.
Thank you.
Melanie has more
Very
words
prudent.
if you'd like it.
Thank you. Councillor Caswell, and I've got Councillor Healy. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader. And that was a really good explanation from the Chief Executive there, and I thought that was absolutely wonderful. But I just want to ask a simple question, really. Is referendum the right word, or should it be a people's poll or something like that? Because I always thought a referendum ended up with a legal requirement. You know, like we had a referendum on Brexit, we had a referendum on other things, the entry into the European community, etc. So is referendum the right word, or should it be a people's poll or a county-wide poll? Can somebody just say which is which, please? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if we're holding something in Sedgemoor, then it is clearly a poll, and it is advisory, and it's part of the Secretary of State's deliberations and thinking when he makes his decision. So it's a material consideration for that process. I think the point that the Chief Executive was making was that if each of the districts run a poll, it is effectively a referendum on the people. It's not legally binding, but it is a fairly strong indication. Chief Exec.
Oh, you captured it perfectly, Leader. The issue for us is using language that people understand. I think if we do call it a local poll, it confuses people as to what perhaps that is. This is an advisory referendum that we can utilise then to put before the Secretary of State and have him take it into account when he makes his decision.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, thank you. Councillor Healy.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and Councillor Caswell very nicely took the words out of my mouth. But I think, you know, if I may, not to go over old ground, but I think it's really important that there's not a skewed message sent out, because people are talking out there, you know, we all do parish councils, etc. And there's a lot of what's going on, how we're going to do it. And I think if we keep talking poll, referendum, it's actually going to confuse people even more. So I think, you know, if I may use Councillor Caswell's first name, Mike, is totally correct where he said it's either or. Which is it? Thank you. So thank you for that.
Right, thank you. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. It's not relevant to some extent, but I was a little bit disappointed by Bevan Britton's response. Have I read that wrong? I'm so glad to get James Goldie, the QC. Obviously, that's put it in perspective. But I wanted to ask Bob if he felt the same, or was it just me as I've read it?
Thanks, Deputy Leader. The response that we got from Bevan Britton, I think, was disappointing. It didn't accord with the lawyers that we have in-house. So, I mean, I've not done proper lawyering for a while, but both myself, Melanie, and Steve, who looked at that, weren't convinced that they got that spot on. Hence the reason why we were keen to get QC's advice anyway, and we were recommended by Bevan Britton initially to do that. And I think what that shows is that Melanie, myself, and Steve were vindicated, because James Gowdy is abundantly clear about where the merits of this sit and why it needs to be taken into consideration, and on that basis why it would then represent value for money to hold it. And as you can see, Deputy Leader, we took out the other financial bits that were in the previous report, if you remember, because I was asking for some additional resources around transitional costs and other things. And I'll bring that report back at a later date in order to obtain those resources, because we just wanted to narrowly focus it on the cost of holding the referendum.
Yeah, thank you for that. I find it very contradictory, that glad you've said that. That made me feel better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doddridge.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Well, firstly, I'm very glad we're at the stage where the possibility of a referendum or poll, or whatever we get to call it, is looking very real. I've been saying it for a long time, and thanks to the Chief Exec and everybody else who's worked to get us here. I think the Chief Exec mentioned there's the possibility of a challenge from county. Is there any chance they could run out the clock on this, and we're in a situation, if there is a challenge or court challenge from them, where we haven't really got time to stage this poll and then get the results into the Secretary of State?
I don't think we can rule that out, but clearly, if there is a challenge, we have a ticking clock in regard to this issue. We would seek to have any challenge expedited so that we could get within the time frame that the Secretary of State has set out. So we would look to get the court to urgently list and resolve the matter. I mean, I'm hoping that the County Council will, will see that there is merit in this step. We believe there's merit in this step. Join in with us in terms of addressing it more widely with the voters in Somerset. Participate properly, and hopefully, democracy will be the winner at the end of the day.
Yeah, I would say, just following on from that, we've been denied, or the voters of Somerset have been denied one chance this year to give an opinion on this through the postponement of the county council elections, where they could have supported candidates who got various views on this. So I think a second denial of democracy wouldn't be great for local government in Somerset.
Thank you. Councillor Gilling.
Mute, Andrew.
Yep.
Sorry about that. I'm used to being muted, as you know, but nevertheless, I would like somebody to explain to me what the Wednesbury rules are, because I'm not legally trained.
Well, I think we have just the person here, or just the people here, in order to explain it. Yeah. Okay. I don't know whether Melanie or Bob.
I'll defer to a proper lawyer.
I'm happy to come in. I mean, basically, it's about making a reasonable decision. So it's about taking into account all of the relevant factors. So obviously all of the documentation you've got before you, the legal advice, the Section 151 officer's report, my report, taking all of those factors into account and then weighing things up. It's about making a reasonable decision, not a decision that, you know, is completely unreasonable, that, you know, people would challenge, that no one would reach. So it's just about being reasonable, weighing up the factors. And what you're really looking at is, you know, in light of the cost of the poll, you need to weigh that up about what you see the benefit of going ahead with that poll in terms of, you know, enabling people in Sedgemoor to have a say, and just weighing those two things up and deciding whether you want to proceed. You know that you have legal power to do this poll because the report tells you that. You know you've got the legal power, and you know that it is your decision as to whether you think it's reasonable to proceed with this, and we're making sure that we give you all of the information that you need to make that informed decision.
Thank you. Can I follow that with a supplementary, Ms. Leader?
Yep,
Just
yep,
briefly.
please do.
The letter that Bob referred to about Mr. Finch, is he a member of the community that can qualify to have an opinion on this topic? And are the reports that he makes reference to in the public domain, or is it just an individual that with, as Bob quite correctly in my view said, was being disingenuous?
Chief Exec. Oh, okay, Melanie.
No, I'm happy. Bob might want to come in first, and I
think so to be clear, Councillor Gilling, in terms of disingenuous, I wasn't accusing Mr. Finch of being disingenuous. I think we need to be careful in terms of what we say there. The disingenuous point that I'm making is the reference to, and I think it's often said, the Stronger Somerset proposal is not about two local authorities, and they keep on lumping on sort of, you're going to have a trust for this and you're going to have a trust for that, and there'll be other senior officers around the place. And it was just to make the point that I think that point is disingenuous in light of the fact that there are, you know, there's a health and wellbeing board currently, there's a heritage partnership that runs archives, there's a Training Standards Connect, which is a partnership with Devon and others to run. So these arrangements and these other entities exist in a multitude already. So I think it's just unfair that for when we propose them, it means you've got lots of different organisations, and when they already exist, they're not. So that's the point I make there.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, thank you.
And if I could just come in, Leader, just to say, you know, that this is something that's in front of you, so it's important for you to obviously take it into consideration, but you will obviously attach such weight as you feel appropriate to it when you're weighing everything up and reaching your conclusion on what you believe is the right way forward.
Thank you. Yeah, that's fine.
And the Wednesbury rules aren't just specifically for us, they're for all forms of government, and all forms of government must take everything into consideration when making decisions. Hence the strong recommendation that we go ahead with a poll stroke referendum for the Somerset people to make their voice known, and that the Secretary of State will then take that into consideration under the Wednesbury rules during the process of his deliberations. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say, I read this a few times, but I think the letter that was written back to Robert Jenrick is worth people almost printing off and having under their belt, because it explains everything. I think that's an excellent letter done by the districts, yourselves, obviously, Bob and Leader, because that really does explain everything. And it's a much better letter than I would have written, because you were very conciliatory in your reply, which I suppose is what's needed, but it's really good letter.
Thank you. I see we're joined by the Corporate Relations Manager as well, Claire Fawn. My apologies for not including you at the beginning, but I didn't see a little bubble there, but apologies for that. Members of Council, any other comments or questions? No. In that case, then the only recommendation before us today is the slightly amended one through to full council. Councillor Slocum, I'm happy to move that recommendation.
I'm very, very happy to second it, Leader.
Right. In that case, is there anything, Mrs. Turner, you wish to say?
No, I don't think so, Leader. I think that the Section 151 comments are clearly laid out in the report based on the advice from the QC. So I haven't got anything to add to that.
Right. Thank you. Chief Executive, anything further to add?
No, thank you, Leader.
Okay. In that case, then I'll ask the executive if there are any abstentions or opposing votes. In that case, Mr. Melhuish, please.
Thank you very much, Leader and members. So I'm pleased to confirm, as there have been no votes against or no abstentions, that the recommendations set out before you with the slight amendment to 1 in the report is unanimously carried.
Thank you. And there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed and look forward to seeing you at full council in a little over half an hour's time. Thank you very much for your attendance this morning. Thank you.